What would you do if after 22 years of marriage the person you loved walked out on you for someone else, and then came crawling back, broken and begging for help? My wife of 22 years was busily packing a few of her most cherished items in plastic storage boxes, humming to herself as if she was doing a casual spring cleaning. I, in turn, was standing in the doorway of our family room, watching Amanda with tears flowing down my face. Despair and a sense of total powerlessness rippled through my soul, knowing she was minutes away from the sudden abandonment of our life together. Part of me already hated her for the betrayal she had so unemotionally informed me about just hours ago. But truthfully, part of me also hated myself for breaking down like I did and even now silently crying. I guess a real man like her admirer, Mike Jericho, would have acted out in some other fashion. But he was not the one being betrayed. He was the man my wife was going to live with in California. Standing there, with Amanda seemingly oblivious to my presence, I ran the events of the past few months through my head, trying to make sense of everything. It had started about 6 months prior with Amanda's employer, a national insurance company, hiring Jericho as an efficiency consultant. He supposedly was the best in restructuring companies by cutting waste and the usual other business-related issues. The contract Jericho had with Amanda's employer had him there for 6 to 9 months. Amanda, as a department head, was tasked to work closely with him to make the reorganization as smooth and quick as possible. That is where things now obviously went wrong. Before this man Jericho showed up, my wife had never given me the slightest hint that she would ever be unfaithful. She was the type of wife that got semi-hurt if I casually looked at another woman while we were out in public. She would then make her usual comment about how I was the love of her life and could not begin to imagine being with another man. Jericho must truly be one amazing man because it only took 2 months to get my wife to willingly be with him. This day had started as usual with me making reservations at Amanda's favorite restaurant, which I was going to surprise her with that evening. Instead, I got a call from her after lunch asking me to return home immediately. Of course, I rushed home to find her unnaturally calm, sitting on the couch. My first thought was that something had happened to our children. Sally, our oldest, was a nurse in New York City, and Kevin was in the Army stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. "Please sit down, Bruce," she said. "I have some difficult news to tell you." "Are the children okay?" I asked immediately as I sat next to her. "Yes, they are fine. It is about you and me and something that I never expected to happen." Like some surprise attack, Amanda admitted she was in love with another man and was leaving me that day. She also told me flat out it was Mike Jericho, someone she had mentioned only a few times in passing since he had arrived. I met the guy once when I had to pick Amanda up from work because her car was in the shop. Standing in the lobby, watching Jericho interact with others, it took less than a minute to realize he was the type who believed everything he did was perfect. The flashy clothes he was wearing, complete with rings on his fingers and a gold Rolex on his wrist, along with his charm and good looks, made him believe he could get anything he wanted. Never in a million years would I believe my wife would fall for that. Amanda tried to explain it this way. When she began working with Jericho, she felt an instant connection that only got deeper as the days and weeks passed. She said she was sorry for how this happened and that I had been a wonderful husband, but she knew it was time to start a new phase of her life. "I cannot believe you are seriously doing this." "Amanda," I said, watching her secure the lids on the storage boxes, "this is unbelievable. You really do not know Jericho, and while I accept that things between us may have gotten stale, I cannot believe you are going to throw away our life together like this," I said in a whimpering voice that offended me on many levels. "Mike has completely explained his past to me," my wife replied back with a strange look I had never seen before. It took a second to realize the difference. For our entire marriage, when Amanda looked at me, there was a special soft smile and glint in her eyes that told me I was loved. That look of love had helped me through a bunch of difficult times, from the death of my father to my sister's cancer fight. Amanda now looked at me with a combination of cold indifference mixed with annoyance. In an afternoon of blows to my soul, I think this was the worst. I knew then that there was no hope. She was in some form of love with another man. "Bruce," she said, "please try to understand and be happy for me." "Are you serious, Amanda?" I yelled back, my body shaking from the unbelievable words coming out of her mouth. It was at that moment Amanda rushed over and grabbed both of my hands and pulled me close. I was not foolish enough to believe she had suddenly come to her senses, but then again, I did not pull away. "Bruce, I have made my choice. You're going to have to let me go," she said, then released my hands and turned back to the 2 boxes she had packed. Amanda attempted to lift them herself off a table, a task that was difficult, but she got them to the floor and onto the hand truck we kept for such tasks. Realizing that she was done with me as both a husband and person, I allowed her to maneuver the boxes out the front door on her own and over to her SUV. After popping the rear hatch, I saw 2 large travel cases in the back, which had to contain the clothes she was taking to start her new life. When Amanda explained the situation about her leaving with Jericho, she told me that in the coming divorce I would get the house and both cars. Amanda also added that she had told her lawyer not to pursue alimony. My stomach clenched because the way Amanda made those statements was as if she was trying to pass those things off like a grand consolation prize. At that moment, my thoughts flashed to the old game shows that offered up a year's supply of rice-a-roni to contestants before they were sent off the stage. All Amanda wanted in the divorce was half of our joint savings, a sum that came to $65,000. She was leaving behind the 3,000-square-foot home we had lived in for 15 years, a house that she had obsessed over from everything to the foundation all the way up to the roof. Every item in the house, from the fixtures to the paint on the walls to the make of the furniture and appliances, was chosen by her. She loved that house in a way I often could not understand. Given all the time and effort she put into its creation and development, I could not help but wonder if Amanda had suffered a brain injury that had altered her personality. "Bruce, along with the divorce papers, I have left contact information on the desk in your office in case something happens to the kids," she said, getting into her car. "Tell the kids I will be in touch in a few weeks." "Forget you, Amanda," I said with anger building. "I will not be relegated to some messenger between you and our kids. You are going to have to explain your actions to them personally. And I know our kids, they will not accept Jericho in their lives, and they might cut you out completely." That statement seemed to pierce the thick affair fog for a moment, crashing the beautiful delusion that had consumed her. Of course, she quickly shook it off and got in her car and cranked it up. Just when I thought Amanda would simply drive away, she rolled down her window. "Bruce," she said, "I will have a driver return my car. You can keep it, give it to one of the kids, or sell it. I will not need it where I am going." With that, she rolled up the window, pulled out of the driveway, and drove away. It was then that the neighbors learned what had just transpired because I collapsed on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Luckily for me, one of my oldest friends was a lawyer who could handle divorces. Robert Carter and I went back to our days playing high school football. He was the person I called a couple of hours after Amanda had driven off to begin her fairy tale come true. This took place after a few neighbors found me lying on the driveway and carried me back into the house. In the following days, Robert found Amanda's lawyer easy to work with since she had clearly laid out to him that this was to be an uncontested divorce. Amanda had already transferred the $65,000 in our joint savings to another account. And with her attorney, she signed away any claim to alimony, the house and her car, which was returned the following day. All I had to do was wait from 30 to 90 days for the divorce to make its way through the bureaucracy. Robert assured me, though, that my wait would more than likely be around the 1-month mark. I do not remember much of the following weeks. Luckily, my boss and coworkers at the engineering firm where I worked knew what had happened with my marriage and took care of the few unfinished assignments I had at the time. Once they were squared away, my boss even used a little-known company hardship policy to get me an extended leave of absence. My kids, Sally and Kevin, had thrown their full support behind me once they learned of what their mother had done. They both desperately wanted to return home, but the demands of their own adult lives made that impossible. As far as Amanda contacting them, you would think a mother who was suddenly leaving their father after more than 2 decades of marriage would have called her kids to try and explain. But no, when I reached the kids after talking with Robert, I found out they had not received any communication from their mother in several weeks. Goodness, that Mike Jericho must have one magic charm. After talking with Robert and the kids, I pretty much shut down after that, refusing to leave the house or talk to anyone else. A few weeks later, some sense of self-awareness finally crept back the morning after Robert called to tell me it was time to sign the papers. Of course, that would have required me to be presentable in public. So I stumbled into the master bathroom, where Amanda had taken a full month to decide on the decor and proper fixtures, and looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time ever, I saw a thin, hollow-eyed stranger with a thick, unkempt beard full of gray. Thinking back at that moment, I could not remember the last time I had a real meal. I had lost at least 30 pounds since Amanda left and honestly looked so close to death it scared me. I became so mad then at how I had been used and betrayed that I did something totally out of character for me. I punched the mirror with my fist. The glass shattered all over the sink. My right hand was badly cut with blood going everywhere. It took a visit to the emergency room and a few stitches to finally clear my head. I still had enough time afterward to get cleaned up and go to Robert's office. Robert looked on with some concern as I signed the divorce papers in his firm's conference room. Who would have thought that a hardened divorce attorney who had gone through his own marital nightmare could still have empathy for a client who still loved his unfaithful wife? "Well, Bruce, you are officially divorced," Robert said in a way that was supposed to bring me some relief. "Yay me," I said with spite. "Bruce," he said, standing up, bringing an end to our meeting, "I know this is awful, but I've got to say you came away from this divorce mostly unscathed. Losing just $65,000 in the settlement given your shared wealth is a win in anyone's book. With this state's divorce laws, I have known unfaithful wives that have taken almost everything from their former husbands." I stayed silent, taking no comfort in Robert's words as I stood up to shake his hand and leave. It was then that I caught sight of the pretty paralegal entering the room, a blonde somewhere in her 20s looking at me visibly overwhelmed with pity. A more dynamic and smarter version of me probably could have used her emotions for a rebound relationship out of pity, but in truth that talent for me never existed. I was clearly no Mike Jericho. Having Jericho take my wife and live rent-free in my head was almost too much to bear. I walked out to my car, wondering just what in the world I would do now. My wife and kids held all the meaning in my life. The kids were grown and out on their own, so Amanda had become my purpose. I cried after getting in the car, totally oblivious to whether anyone saw me break down. At some point, I guess a self-preservation instinct kicked in and I regained my composure. It was the last time I cried over Amanda. A couple of weeks later, I was back at work trying to rebuild my life. I think the worst thing was the looks that the others gave me. There were several variations, but I was mostly looked at with deep pity. However, there were a few looks of suspicion, with some whispering that there had to be a reason why Amanda threw away what, on the surface, looked like a perfect marriage. The real difficulty for me was when I returned to the house we shared. Amanda's presence seemed to linger everywhere, given all the time and effort she had spent creating what for her was the perfect home. It was so overwhelming that I had dreams each night of her returning to me, begging for forgiveness. It was obvious what my next move would be. Just a few days later, a moving van rented by a used furniture dealer backed into the driveway. I sold him, at a bargain price just to spite Amanda's metaphorical ghost, almost every item in the house that was not bolted down. When he and his workers left, there was only a bed for me, the large screen television, the basic kitchen appliances, a couch, and my recliner. The house was so empty. Any sound echoed through it like a cave. I was not done yet. Even when the kids were living with us, Amanda's creation was far too large for a family of 4. I had no intention of living in it alone any longer than I had to. I called a real estate agent the next day. A few weeks later, I found a nice patio home for sale and snapped it up immediately. The big house was also listed at a bargain price and bought by a family with 4 young kids. Seeing the wonder in the eyes of the mother and father as they walked through the empty rooms of their new home brought me my first joy in months. A little over 4 months had passed since Amanda destroyed my world, and I was developing a new normal for my life. Especially heartening was that both Sally and Kevin had, in no uncertain terms, cut their mother out of their lives. Apparently, Amanda and Jericho went on a 2-week-long cruise after arriving in California, and she did not try to contact the kids until well after it was over. It was a little after the 6-month point of Amanda leaving that I got a phone call from an unknown number. It was late in the day, and I had just cooked a frozen pizza and opened a beer when the phone buzzed. I declined the call and went back to the movie I was watching. At some point, it occurred to me to look up the area code, and I laughed when I learned it was from the San Francisco area. I figured it was probably from a telemarketer, but I found it comforting how much I did not care one way or the other. If it was Amanda trying to make contact, it was the 8-month mark when everything fell apart. I got a call from Amanda's sister, correctly named Karen because she acted like one, informing me that Amanda had tried to contact me. I instantly thought back to the unknown call from the San Francisco area. "Well, Karen," I said, "I will take your word for it, but I have not received any call from her. And frankly, our marriage ended on really bad terms, so I have no desire to talk with her. Plus, according to your sister's own words, Mike Jericho is her true soulmate. If it involves the kids, whatever relationship she can rebuild with them is on her. Not only will I not help my ex-wife with anything, I honestly do not know if I would pour water on Amanda if I saw her on fire." Karen and I only tolerated each other at the best of times, so it was not surprising that she hung up without saying another word. Though I could not help but ponder what might have gone wrong between Amanda and Jericho. If Amanda had run headfirst into some form of reality with her lover, she was going to be in a world of trouble for someone to save her. My former father-in-law and mother-in-law were deceased, and Amanda's sister and her husband were taking care of his aging parents. And even if Sally and Kevin were speaking to their mother, neither had any way for her to live with them. Oh well, I thought to myself as I took a sip of my beer, Amanda should have $65,000 to cushion any return to the real world. I did realize that I had not mentioned to Karen that I had sold the house and everything in it. It was a month later when the final blow came. I was sitting in the office I shared with another engineer when the phone on my desk rang. "Hello, this is Bruce Evans. Can I help you?" I said, not paying attention to the number on the screen. "Yes, Mr. Evans," a female voice said. "I am Dr. Sylvia Altman calling from Sacramento Regional Hospital, and I need to inform you that your wife, Amanda Evans, is my patient. She was in a car accident a couple of weeks ago and has just regained consciousness. Her Illinois driver's license records have you listed as her next of kin." Needless to say, Dr. Altman was taken aback when I chuckled. "Yes, Dr. Altman, we have been divorced for about 8 months. My ex-wife should have updated her emergency contact information. She is in a relationship with a man named Mike Jericho. He is the one you should contact." "That is just it," Dr. Altman sighed. "With Ms. Evans unconscious, the police ran the license plate on the car and contacted Mr. Jericho. He has disavowed any responsibility for Ms. Evans and has stated they were not in a long-term, committed relationship." "Oh wow, I do not know what to tell you, doctor. As I stated, she and I are divorced, and the breakup of our marriage for me was unexpected and brutal. I really do not see how I can be of help to Amanda. Not to be petty, but she burned our bridges thoroughly, and the last thing she said to me was her certainty that she and Jericho were meant for each other." "Yes," Dr. Altman began, "Mr. Jericho has gone as far as to have his lawyer make it clear to the hospital that he wants no further contact from Ms. Evans." "Dr. Altman, Amanda has money. She got $65,000 out of the divorce," I responded, now knowing where this was going. "Ms. Evans says that money is gone and that she does not have any medical insurance. Mr. Evans, your ex-wife has repeatedly asked about you and has some idea you will help her." "I will be on the first flight I can get," I said to the doctor, not believing the words coming out of my mouth. "Do you want to speak with Ms. Evans?" the doctor asked. "She still has a long recovery ahead of her, but your ex-wife wants to speak with you," she said, obviously relieved that someone would come to her injured patient. "No," I replied. "I need to speak with my lawyer before talking to her." Dr. Altman did not push the point, and I believed she fully understood the nature of how our relationship ended. We talked for several more minutes, getting some of the details about how the car wreck happened. What I began to understand was that Jericho and she were having a fight, with Amanda fleeing his residence in one of his cars. My ex-wife was never a good driver, and being in control of some high-end vehicle on unfamiliar roads in bad weather explained everything to me. What Dr. Altman only alluded to was that after examining Amanda, she had evidence of physical abuse on the part of Jericho against her. After talking with my lawyer, I took a red-eye flight to Sacramento and arrived at the hospital 8 hours later, after a long layover in Dallas. It was early morning when I met with Dr. Altman. I wanted to talk with her and fully explain my position before seeing Amanda. The doctor was not happy with what I told her, but she did not stop me from proceeding since Amanda had done nothing but ask for me since becoming conscious. I walked into Amanda's room to see her awake and sitting up. Her right arm was heavily bandaged, and it was obvious she had suffered numerous cuts and lacerations. I also noticed the broken nose and black eyes, but did not really know if that was from Jericho or the car accident. When she saw me, it was immediately clear that the Jericho delusion was broken. Looking at me, she had that soft smile and twinkle in her eyes that said I was the love of her life. All I could think was, oh no, I knew you would come to save me, Amanda said before breaking down in uncontrolled sobs. I have been such an ungrateful fool, she blurted out between howls of what could have been, either shame or relief that I had arrived. Amanda's nurse showed up then and wanted to administer a sedative but was waved away. Several minutes later, Amanda had regained some control of her emotions. That was when she noticed I was still just standing inside her room. That I had neither walked over to her bedside nor was I showing any emotion at seeing her. Please come here, Bruce, she said, starting to have an inkling that I was not going to be her shining white knight. I know what I did was unforgivable, that I threw our life and family away for a man that began abusing me just a few weeks after I left with him, she finished, still looking for some reaction from me. Tell me everything that happened, Amanda, I said coldly, grabbing a chair near the foot of her hospital bed and taking a seat. I listened as Amanda began telling her story of how Jericho had manipulated her into believing her life had been wasted. That Jericho had used his charm to convince her to want to start a new and wonderful life with him. How many times did you two sleep together before the day you packed up and left with him? I asked, and Bruce, please, I do not want to talk about that, Amanda said quietly and looked away. Answer the question, I said in a tone of voice that must have scared her. We started sleeping together about a month after we began working together, she answered, obviously ashamed. When did you first get a hint that you had made a mistake? That Jericho was not the soulmate you said he was while sitting on our couch at home? Amanda started crying again but answered the question. He took me on a cruise to the South Pacific just a few days after arriving at his home. A few days into the trip, he became very controlling, warning me not to embarrass him around others on the ship. He compared me to other women and told me many times that I was not equal to them, that he was doing me a favor by being with me. What was the deal with crashing his car? Amanda looked down for several seconds, remaining quiet before speaking. About 3 months after returning to his house, he started hitting me. It was then I realized how badly I had been deceived, that I had made a huge mistake. I wanted to call you and ask if I could come home, but Mike had long since taken my cell phone. If I wanted to make a call, I had to ask to use his. Then came a day when he left his phone on a table while talking to one of his equally strange friends. I took my chance and called you. Your phone rang a few times, then went to voicemail. I was devastated and wanted to try again, but Mike walked back inside. He knew I had tried something and hit me so badly I had to be taken to another one of his friends who was a doctor. He treated me without reporting the abuse. This doctor and Mike had a huge laugh over my black eyes, and when we returned to his place, he assaulted me. Amanda broke down again. I had to give her credit, she was coming clean. After recovering, she continued her story. Mike left me alone in the house for several days. He said I was an embarrassment and that he did not want to be seen with me. Since I could not reach you or the kids, I gathered enough courage to steal one of his cars and head east. I had this blind desire to return home where I was going to beg you to take me back. Somewhere I went off the road near Sacramento and was unconscious for several days. What about Jericho? What did he do when he found you gone? The car's registration led to him, and when informed of my condition, he did not want anything to do with me. The car I wrecked was just written off. Just a few days before the cruise, he convinced me to transfer my money to him for safekeeping. So I guess my money went to paying off the wreck. We just looked at each other in silence for several minutes. Some small part of me wanted to comfort her. That sliver of caring wanted me to grab her and take her home. But the main problem was that there was no home anymore. And more importantly, I could not forget nor forgive the cold indifference she showed the day she left. There was no way in the world I could ever trust Amanda again. I really could not trust anything she had said or done during our entire marriage. What do you want me to do about all of this, Amanda? I finally asked, wondering what she would say. Amanda started crying again, and I honestly believe they were true tears of regret and sadness. I was sure it was not some emotional meltdown lamenting the disastrous end to a romantic gamble. I felt bad for her because she must have felt utterly alone. Bruce, Amanda said, gathering her courage, I want to go home. I want to sleep in our bed, wake up the next morning beside you, and work for the rest of my life to make up for what I have done to us, and especially to you. Amanda, there is no easy way to say this, because what you did to us was a nightmare, but the home you and I built is gone. I sold everything to recover some of my self-respect. Your presence was everywhere in that house. I could not live there anymore with everything reminding me of you. It hurt too much. I bought a small home on the other side of town. I live by myself and have come to like that way of life. Despite the roller coaster of emotions in that room, Amanda was stunned into silence. I sensed a similar level of overwhelming disbelief from her that I felt when she suddenly informed me of her affair and that she was leaving me. "Can we start again in your new place?" Amanda asked. "I cannot imagine not having you in my life," she finished. Leaving me amazed, she could utter those words with a straight face. After Amanda made her appeal to come home and start again, I looked at her with an indifference I would have never imagined possible 1 year ago. Back then, I believed our lives were irrevocably intertwined, so much that I would have used the naive word soulmate to describe how I felt. But in the space of a few months, she threw that all away. She even cruelly broke contact with our 2 kids with only a vague statement to me about contacting them later to explain. Her actions were so short-sighted, selfish, and self-centered that it was impossible for me to even consider accepting her back in my life. The injury she had inflicted on me was just too serious. Our lives were definitely once intertwined, but now I only saw deadwood that needed to be cut out of my life. I searched for anything to say to her request. It was her last words to me months earlier that popped into my head. "Amanda, you made your choice and I let you go. Now it is time for you to do the same with me," I replied, feeling a sudden sense of relief. My ex-wife started to say something but must have remembered those words that I had just echoed back to her. The look on Amanda's face was one of stark terror. Her hope of rescue by me was destroyed, and now my ex-wife realized she was not only completely alone, but also without financial resources. "I'm leaving you a check for $10,000, I said, standing up to leave. "My lawyer recommended against this since you signed away any claim to the house or alimony. So consider it a gift. It is a little cash to restart your life. How you go about that is up to you. Whether or not the kids let you back into their lives is up to them." Of course, Amanda broke down into tears again, and while it was cold-blooded, I took that moment to walk out, not saying another word. I dropped off legal paperwork with the hospital stating that I, like Jericho, did not want anything more to do with the former Amanda Evans. A few hours later, I caught a flight home with a completely clear conscience. On the flight home, it occurred to me that even after the divorce, I had let Amanda's choices restrict my own options in life. Seeing Amanda in that hospital room, with her admitting the monumental mistake she had made with Jericho, had restored a good chunk of my soul. Along with that was seeing Amanda's face when she realized I was not there to rescue her, that whatever future she had did not include me. This new feeling of vindication was liberating but also came with a curious burden. I had been living among the pieces of our broken marriage. It was on me to sweep away the shattered glass that was all those past commitments and fond memories. It was time for me to begin a new life. Would you take them back? Or finally choose yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story gripped you, do not forget to like and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories.